Hey everybody, this is Tori. Welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing a story time about my diagnosis and a little bit about my life living with metastatic breast cancer. Please understand that this is my story and the things that have worked for me. They may not work for you. Please do not take anything that I say as medical advice for you. Please consult your team and they will be the ones to take care of you. Anything that I say is my own personal journey and personal experience. When I was diagnosed, I was working two full-time jobs. And when I say full-time jobs, I mean labor-intensive jobs. I was working as a full-time chef at Ohio State University at the Wexner Medical Center. Go Bucks. And I was also working at a local ski resort. And I was working there as the food and beverage manager. So I was very busy and I was doing a lot of work. I was lifting 50-pound bags of flour. At times I was lifting 25-pound cases. So everything that I was really experiencing at the time could be explained away. I was having back pain, but I was working two jobs that I had to lift consistently for. I really didn't think it was anything, but I still had it evaluated. And I would hear things like, you know what, you're just overdoing it. Okay, yeah, I know that, but this pain is real. They would say, oh, it might be fibromyalgia, could be some autoimmune, but no one ever mentioned breast cancer being a possibility. And really, it wasn't a possibility even in my mind until I kind of hit it head on. I was home at my parents' house for the night, woke up in the morning, and I rolled over in bed and thought I was laying on my cell phone. I had kind of a pressure on my breast. And I reached over and realized my phone wasn't there. Like, okay, so what is this? And I felt up and there was a lump. So I went and had my mom check it because I was home. My mom's a nurse. And I said, hey, can you feel this? See what you think? And she's like, I think you should call the doctor. So the first meeting with the doctor did not go great. It was the conversation of, you're young, you're fine, we can maybe watch it. It wasn't really supportive of what I was feeling at the time. It was very dismissive, very much the idea of you're too young for breast cancer. So like the little rebel that I am, I went back the next morning to see her nurse practitioner because I knew she'd be there for sick bay. And I said, can we just get this checked? And she felt it. And she goes, you're young, but let's just go ahead and get some imaging. Your grandmother had breast cancer. Let's just go ahead and check, make sure what's going on. And at this point, it was a Friday. And Monday coming up would have been when we had the next mammograms in my county because they were only on Mondays. And at that point, I think they were every other week. I could be wrong, but I believe they were every other week. And we went ahead, scheduled the imaging. However, that Monday, I was going to be going to Nashville. I would be in Nashville for my 30th birthday. So we did it for the week following. And when I went in, they first did the mammogram, then they did the ultrasound, and then she comes back and says, we need to schedule you to come back next week for a biopsy. And I'm like, can we do this today? I had been living down in Columbus at the time, and my parents were around an hour from where I lived, and the doctor was back by my parents' house. So I had to take a whole day off work to even do this and do these scans. I said, let's just do it today while I'm here. And they said, well, insurance might not cover it. I was like, I want to do this today. Let's get it covered. So I really fought for myself and got that day that I was already there. So it's about a week, a little less than a week later, I got a phone call that said, we need you to come in. We have the biopsy results. And when I went in, they said, you have what looks like two tumors. It's invasive ductal carcinoma, grade 2, not stage. And since we didn't have an oncologist in my county, we had to refer either to Lima or Columbus. Now, I was working in Columbus at a hospital, in one of the best cancer centers in this country. It only made sense for me to go there for my treatment. Once we got to the second location and got the second opinion, that's where things really changed, because we first saw surgical oncology, and I asked him, I said, based on my images, can you give me an idea of what stage you think this might be? And he said, it doesn't look like there's lymph node involvement, maybe a little bit, but let's say probably stage 2. Stage 2 I could live with. I really didn't understand a whole lot about staging at that point, not like I do now, for sure. But 2, I felt like, okay, this is going to be a year out of my life. I'll be fine. I can do this. Now we went to MedOnc, and they ordered an additional CT because on top of the back pain that I had been having, it was thought that maybe I had PCOS. So we wanted to check my ovaries and check my back and just make sure everything was good to go. Within a week, I had a phone call, and the doctor called and said, you have metastatic breast cancer, stage 4 breast cancer. Can you come into my office tomorrow to talk about this? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. We'll be good. It's a year out of my life. We'll be good. And I was so naive, you guys. I had no idea what metastatic meant. I had to Google what metastatic meant. I just had no idea what I was dealing with. Now, when I went into her office the next day, she told me, this is not curable. We really hope that one day we can treat this as a chronic disease. And I feel like my brain shut off at that point. I'm like, what do you mean one day a chronic? I had no idea, you guys, that metastatic breast cancer was a terminal diagnosis with an average life expectancy at the time of 18 to 36 months. Only about 20% of the people who are diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer will see a 5-year date after their diagnosis. We found my breast cancer in not just my bones, but in my liver and my lungs as well. Now, the bone that was most affected was my T12, and that's where they did the biopsy for the bone. We had to do a procedure called a vertebroplasty, which they go in and they put plaster into the bone to strengthen it because it was fractured. It was actually crushed 70% of its height. Now think about that for a minute. I was working and lifting 50-pound bags of flour 2 days before I heard this. Since my diagnosis, I have been on 9 different what they call systemic therapies. Systemic means it goes through your whole system. So my cancer was estrogen positive, HER2 negative, and I'll put some things about those down in the description if you're curious about what is HER2 or what is estrogen positive breast cancer. I'll link that down below. I've been on 9 different systemic therapies. I've had 6 different rounds of palliative radiation. I've had a procedure called a spinal nerve ablation where they burn the nerves down your spine so you don't register pain as severely. It's been a lot. But each time, you guys, every time a medication would stop working, I would hear, keep the battle going, keep fighting. And really, all I could do at that point when people would say that is I would smile, but I would feel this intense shame. Like I wasn't doing enough. And looking back now, I'm like, that's crazy. But that's how I've been indoctrinated. That's how we all have been taught. You keep the battle going, keep fighting. You guys, we don't have control if our medication stops working. Some point your cancer with metastatic breast cancer just outsmarts your treatment and you have to switch. And that is not your fault. I'm going to say that again for every patient watching this. It is not your fault that your medication cannot keep up with your cancer. If will enough was what would keep the cancer at bay, taking the pill and having a positive attitude and having the will and saying, this isn't going to defeat me, I can say that to kingdom come, but at some point, my cancer will outsmart my medication and I will have to go on to a new medication. That does not mean that I or you or anyone else failed or lost. Are you kidding me? It's the science that didn't keep up with us, not something that we did. Please remember that. If you get anything from this video, please remember this. It is not your fault. It is not your fault you were diagnosed with breast cancer. There are some of the healthiest people that I have met that have still been diagnosed with this. Vegans who are marathon runners. You guys, this affects everyone. 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will be affected by breast cancer. 30% of those who are early stage diagnosis will recur with a metastatic diagnosis. And metastatic breast cancer is a terminal diagnosis. People are living, they are living longer with this. However, it's not something that we can just rest on. We need a sense of urgency. We need more medications. We need more research. I'll do another story time later about some of my experiences with radiation and some of the different medications that I've been on. But I think the big part about this is I really want you guys to understand that, you know, even when you're doing things right, even when you're active, when you're working 2 jobs, when you feel back pain, when you know, whatever it is, it's not your fault that you were diagnosed with breast cancer. It's not your fault when your meds stop working. You're not a loser. You haven't lost. This is not a battle to win or lose. It's your life. It's something you live with. It's something that you face every day. You face with grace. You face it with dignity. Sometimes you face it with tears. Sometimes with laughter. Sometimes there's dark humor involved. But you face it. And we live with it. And we live with it every day until we don't. And when we don't, that's typically the end of our lives. I was diagnosed about 2 weeks ago with brain metastasis and will be starting some new treatments. So if I don't post as regularly, please have some patience with me. I will be doing some different procedures and I'll be documenting my journey going through a brain metastasis diagnosis in a later video. So in the meantime, please be kind to everyone, especially down in the comments below. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this video, and I will see you all on the next video. Thank you. Bye.